Picture being isolated in a cabin in the woods. You have many large windows and several doors. Outside is a serial killer who has taken your phone, cut your power, popped your tires, and has promised to come in. Only after you've been completely broken, and that is when they're going to kill you. That is the situation our main protagonist, Maddie, finds herself in. And she has the unique, for a horror film, disadvantage of being deaf. They utilize this disadvantage by making it a weakness, but not making Maddie completely helpless. In fact, it helps her take on this asshole later on in the film. Given that in most horror films, sound is a very key alert to both the characters and the audience when something is going to happen, it's actually a really nice change of pace to have a focus on silence or quiet. This is a horror survival film that doesn't focus on giving a bunch of cannon fodder with little to no personality, or just very basic cookie cutter ones, for the killer to hack and slash through in gruesome ways. They keep the cast very limited to primarily Maddie and the unnamed killer. Maddie is a deaf author living by herself in a cabin. She's working on trying to figure out the ending to her latest novel. She has several that she's plucking through, which comes into play thematically with her, because she ends up having to pick the ending to her own story, her own survival story. She has to weigh the pros and cons of her situation, which shows that she has a very calculating and thoughtful mind. One night, while Maddie is cooking, her best friend Sarah comes running and banging on the door. Maddie can't hear it, and she doesn't look over there. And subsequently, Sarah is stabbed to death right against her door. The killer happens to notice that Maddie doesn't react when he's doing this, and it makes him intrigued, and it makes him decide he's going to toy with her. The characters are pretty straightforward and simple. Maddie is a resourceful, intelligent, charismatic person that we genuinely care about. If anyone deserved to survive a horror film, Maddie is the type of person you want to live. That's how much you grow to care about her. That's how much you admire her strength of character, and her bravery, and her toughness. And we also get Sarah and John, and though we're only introduced to them for a little bit, what little bit we get gives them some meat and personality. They are good, supportive people. For example, Sarah is shown to be a very good friend. She has a sense of humor and charm, and even though she doesn't have to, she learns sign language so she can better communicate with Maddie. Maddie tells her it's not necessary because she can read her lips. But Sarah is intent. She's like, no, I'm going to learn this. And John we only see for a little bit, but what little bit we see of this man was enough to show what a good person he is. He goes to Maddie's home looking for Sarah when Sarah doesn't come back. He can't find her. He's outside of Maddie's home. The power is out. And on the glass is a message written in Maddie's handwriting saying, I didn't see anything, I won't tell anybody, my boyfriend's coming home soon. And it makes him very suspicious. And there's this man just outside of Maddie's home trying to get in. And he asks the man who he is, and he pretends he's an officer. But John's smart. John figures it out, and subsequently gets stabbed in the neck. And while he is bleeding to death, he fights this killer. And he struggles with this killer, and he sacrifices, knowing he's going to die, sacrifices himself to give Maddie a chance to escape. That's all I need to know about John to know that he was a good person. Now, the killer is unnamed, which I really like. I like that they don't give him an overly complicated backstory or any level of trying to make us empathize with a killer. He is an evil asshole who does not deserve our sympathy. He is a hunter of people. On his crossbow, he has at least 11 tick marks. Probably ladies, but I don't know. But this man deserves no sympathy. He is a calculating, cold-blooded, horrible fucking murderer. The set is kept focused. Think of like when A Stranger Calls. We're kept in a smaller location. We're limited to the house and then the small amount of grounds that we can see around it. And our only options are to stay inside the house or make a break out into the woods to face a killer. A killer that Maddie cannot hear. For example, she could be in the front of the house, he could be in the back of the house. She decides she's going to make a break for it, and she cannot hear him chasing after her. Now, what I really enjoy about this entire film is that Maddie is full of fight and resourcefulness. She comes up with ideas to try to get herself out of a situation. And even when she doesn't think she's going to survive, what she decides to do is she writes a farewell message to her family, tells them that she went down fighting, and leaves a description of her killer for them to find on her laptop. And she weighs her options and decides she is going to fight him. And right before all of that, she had already gotten stabbed in the leg with a crossbow arrow. She had had her hand completely stamped on to the point where all we hear is squishing and see her bones being bent at odd angles. And then the killer tells her that he's going to come in. And she takes the blood from her leg wound and writes, "Do it, coward," on the glass. That's badass. In all honesty, for what we actually see of these characters, there's a limited cast, and we get enough hints and suggestions. We don't have to have an entire picture of a person in order to empathize or understand or enjoy them. And Maddie gets enough character development. She gets the most character development, which is important because she is the main focus. We're kept in an isolated set. The killer is an unnamed killer. It has the unique angle that our main character cannot hear, and she uses this. She takes a weakness and turns it into a strength at the final end. It's a very interesting survival horror film that it does not have a lot of gore. So if that's something that would appeal to you, I highly recommend checking this out.